I'm always fascinated by evolution in general. So I did a course on climate and human evolution for that reason, and I always keep mentioning evolutionary instincts on many occasions. So I decided to do this series on how evolution is playing a role in what we do and what we don't do. So we are increasing our energy consumption. We became agriculturalists, farmers. Now we are technologists, and we have separated food production from urban populations. So a lot of the people don't even know anything about agriculture, and eventually here we are with all the fossil fuel emissions and other activities that has led us to uh, climate change problems, and now we are discussing it incessantly on how to solve it, and yet we're not so quick on solving it. And this period now, the modern era since about 1952, was tried to be, was uh, being asked to be named the Anthropocene, but the geologists who are in charge of deciding whether a new period has begun or an old period needs a new name and so on, uh, they said no, this doesn't qualify as a new geologic period. So nonetheless, the name Anthropocene sticks. It's very attractive. It was coined by Nobel laureate Paul Crutzen, and now we are discussing a series of papers that consider Anthropocene, climate change, our role in it, and what our evolutionary instincts tell us about what we can and are willing to do about it. So let's start with this one, the Anthropocene condition evolving through social ecological transformations. So the basic idea here is that it's not really different than what we have always done. So let's see what it means for the future, or especially in terms of climate action, right? So let's read the abstract and a few more points. I'm being brief in all these papers as usual, but I will try to capture the most salient points subjectively again. Anthropogenic planetary disruptions from climate change to biodiversity loss are unprecedented challenges for human societies. Some societies, social groups, cultural practices, technologies, and institutions are already disintegrating or disappearing as a result. However, this coupling of socially produced environmental challenges with disruptive social changes, the Anthropocene condition, is not new. From food-producing hunter-gatherers to farmers to urban industrial food systems, the current planetary entanglement has its roots in millennia of evolving and accumulating socio-cultural capabilities for shaping the cultured environments that our societies have always lived in. So that's socio-cultural niche construction. NICHE is pronounced niche by some and niche by some, but let's just use niche. Okay. So when these transformative capabilities to shape environments are coupled with socio-cultural adaptations, enabling societies to more effectively shape and live in the transformed environments, the social ecological scales and intensities of these transformations can accelerate through a positive feedback loop of runaway socio-cultural niche construction. So we changed the environment. Let's say we went from hunter-gatherers to agriculturalists. We stopped moving around, population started growing, fertility rates went up, monogamy may have come along. We started to do more deforestation as populations grew to do more agriculture. That changed climate. Then we adapt agriculture to fit in, we migrate and we integrate into other cultures, or there is an upscaling of population and maybe downscaling, and sometimes there is a selection that happens that creates stable conditions for some time. So that's the general idea of social niche construction. Efforts to achieve a better future for both people and planet will depend on guiding this runaway evolutionary process towards better outcomes by redirecting Earth's most disruptive force of nature, What is it? The power of human aspirations. To guide this unprecedented planetary force, cultural narratives that appeal to human aspirations for a better future will be more effective than narratives of environmental crisis and overstepping natural boundaries. This is very important because as a STEM scientist, as a climate scientist, I'm always feeling like I'm trapped into the bandwagon effect of tipping points and Anthropocene and climate crisis and so on and so forth, even though my life continues to be basically normally lived with vacations and money and house and cars. And now I don't own a car for the last 6 years, but still these words from anthropologists is very important. To guide this unprecedented planetary force, cultural narratives that appeal to human aspirations for a better future will be more effective than narratives of environmental crisis and overstepping natural boundaries. We have discussed planetary boundaries elsewhere and how we keep on saying we have crossed some boundaries and we are awfully close to crossing some others in a global mean sense, nitrogen cycle, greenhouse gases, biodiversity loss, fisheries, air pollution, and so on and so forth. This article is part of the theme issue, Evolution and Sustainability, Gathering the Strands for an Anthropocene Synthesis. So the main idea is I just took some notes and, because I read them and then I have to summarize them. Social science papers are different. They don't have a lot of figures, they have a lot of text, so you have to translate the ideas. Figures are easy to look at and describe and capture all the associated ideas. Without that, often you have to just read the text, and social science problems are formulated in a discursive way. Solutions also can be discursive. So we have positive feedbacks with the environment, deforestation, greenhouse gases, rainfall changes, climate changes, and so on. But then we adapt to it, so then the feedback can grow and become global scale as it has. Anthropocene entanglement is in this sense the feedbacks between economy, societies, cultures, environment, climate change, and so on. Ecosystem engineers, humans are the most significant and maybe disruptive ecosystem engineers compared to other species, and we are socio-cultural innovators as well, and socio-cultural constructors. Anthroecology is the term used here, where gene cultural evolution allows us to do these modulations or modifications of the natural world and the ecosystem. Like all evolutionary processes, socio-cultural evolution is open-ended, diversifying, non-deterministic, so you cannot say where we are headed necessarily, and generally unpredictable, which is what I just said. The question of whether human societies will shape a better Anthropocene than the one they are shaping now cannot be answered by geophysics, earth system science, or even technological innovation. We have this upscaling of processes, our impacts and positive feedbacks, and population growth, and we have downscaling because of migrations, merging. Even Neanderthals either disappeared or just assimilated into Homo sapiens, right? And we keep doing this, and we have done this throughout our history, and then we meet a stabilizing condition and we stay there. So Holocene is kind of a stabilizing condition which has allowed us to modify, adapt, grow, become technologists, and we are still modifying and growing and adapting. The possibilities might seem unlimited, from a dystopic catastrophe to interplanetary utopia. With all this talk about going to Mars, colonizing Moon, and so on, that is now interplanetary utopia, or assume that there is no planet B and it's all a dystopic catastrophe that we are headed to. So evidence will be presented here in this paper to support two claims. The first is that societal capabilities already exist to shape a far better planetary future than the one being shaped now. The second is that societal agency, ability, and willingness to act, to deploy these capabilities depends on widespread recognition that they exist, together with their empowerment through broadly shared aspirational demands for the better future they make possible. So you need a optimistic vision for the future, not the one that says everything is coming to an end. Strategies for increasing societal agency through shared aspirational narratives to shape a better future will be discussed in relation to narratives emphasizing natural planetary limits to human socio-cultural capabilities. So nature ultimately wins, unless we just move to Moon and Mars, as we said before, make it an planetary aspiration and utopia, right? So those are the two ideas that we look at. Just a few points more to make. The first principle for understanding the Anthropocene entanglement of social and planetary change is that this disruptive condition did not result from a lack of human capabilities to adapt to, shape or sustain the novel socio-ecological systems that sustain human societies. Rather, it is only because human societies evolved unprecedented socio-cultural capabilities and agency in shaping their social and ecological environments over thousands of years that human populations are now thriving at levels beyond those of any other species in Earth's history. For better or for worse, for better and for worse, the Anthropocene condition of disruptive planetary change is coupled with unprecedented socio-cultural capabilities to shape the socio-ecological systems that have always sustained human societies. So here is the way to think about it: a stylized depiction of long-term evolutionary patterns of transformative anthro-ecological change, highlighting major regime shifts in socio-cultural niche construction, cultural, ecological and material inheritance, societal scales, energy use per capita, and niche construction intensity, so anthrop area per capita. Lots of nice terminologies, but let's just run through it briefly. We are looking at hunter-gatherers evolving into horticultural and agrarian communities and then becoming industrial. So our socio-cultural niche construction over time has gotten more and more global, let's say. That's the Homo sapiens here already. Fire, symbols, language, crafts, trade, stone tools, and then societal scales also have increased from small bands of hunter-gatherers to segmentary tribes, villages, chiefdoms, states, kingdoms, empires, federated states, and planetary governance, which is what is happening a bit under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change Mitigation Activities, Climate Change Actions, and so on. Energy use, of course, from cooking to gigajoules per person, it's been going up with burning, human labor, smelting and animal traction, biomass, fossil fuels and abiotics. So we'll now go to solar and wind and so on. Right, so in the middle you have all these niche broadening, food production, propagation, tending, weeding, domestication, hierarchy, raiding, smelting, integrated farming, writing, numeracy, taxation, cultural inheritance, telecommunication, computations, knowledge infrastructure, universities, green revolution, synthetics, AI and robotics. So we are still headed to become larger and larger in terms of our niche constructions, let's say. And you have other things here: material inheritance and gray infrastructure. This seems to be shrinking with electronics and so on. I have somebody at the door, so let me stop for a second. Okay, it's the cleaning boy. I had asked him not to ring the bell but knock, but he keeps forgetting. Anyways, he has to do his job. So basically gives you a sense of how we are evolving in so many aspects, and our impact is increasing as well. So the niche construction intensity increased, and we had maybe square kilometers of anthrops per person has shrunk, but again it's complicated in how you actually interpret it and so on. So cautionary tales and crisis narratives have always played important roles in shaping social action, especially when based on powerful shared experiences like extreme weather events. However, crisis narratives based on abstract and differentially experienced concerns like the exceedance of a specific global temperature, tipping point, or other planetary indicators, especially when attached to actions one cannot personally enact. Impossible time limits like saying only 12 years are left to save ourselves and government failures to act can cause more anxiety than action. Even worse, crisis narratives, when developed and deployed primarily by elites, will and well-meaning or otherwise, these elites may be well-meaning or you don't know, maybe they are just trying to position themselves to take more power, and they can drive divisions and disempowerment and conflict and a sense of hopelessness in addition to anxiety. The socio-cultural capabilities to shape a far better future for people and nature already exist. Human aspirations will continue to drive these capabilities towards shaping the socio-ecological, social ecological conditions for human thriving, the planetary capabilities that must now sustain both human societies and the rest of life on Earth. The time has come to put the focus where it belongs, on our shared aspirations for a better future, and making sure that those in power are accountable to meet these aspirational demands. The way people treat each other shapes the way people treat the rest of nature, and the other way, how nature treats us will depend on how we treat the nature as well. So these are ideas, but we have to remember that these are narratives from the anthropology side, gives us a broader perspective on where we came from so that we can know, are we capable of going into the future with a plan, or are we always evolving unpredictably and getting larger in scale, right? So you have to put sustainability and so on in this context, which we will come back and do with other papers in this nice series. I love it. I hope you also enjoy it. So let's come back and discuss the next topic. Okay.